Joined today by the former Speaker of the Colorado House, Andrew Romanoff, the latest Democrat to announce a campaign against Republican Senator Cory Gardner. Welcome to Next.
Thanks, Kyle. Appreciate
Full
it.
disclosure, years ago you were a 9 News political analyst. I have to say that every time.
Thanks.
Senator Gardner was one of the first Republicans in Congress to say that the government shutdown should end without President Trump getting money for his border wall. And that's what happened. Do you give him any credit for that?
I'm glad he said that. I'm sorry that he decided to endorse Donald Trump not long thereafter. Look, if you believe in universal health care, if you believe in a Green New Deal, if you believe in an economy that works for all of us, if you want to see comprehensive immigration reform, you can't stand with Donald Trump because he is standing in the way on all of those issues. I'm running for the U.S. Senate because I want to lead this fight. And if we don't get this administration out of the way, if we don't get the special interests that are blocking reform on all of these issues out of the way, we're to continue to see too many Coloradans struggle and suffer. And that's not acceptable to me.
When we talk about the idea of universal health care, it's going to be a big part of your campaign. Different people are going to call it different things. Universal health care or Medicare for all or single payer or nationalized health care. Recently, we heard Democratic Senator Kamala Harris of California go even farther and suggest it cannot coexist with private insurance. You just have to get rid of for-profit health care in America. Do you agree with that?
Well, I support Medicare for all. And frankly, under existing Medicare's system, you can get private insurance to supplement the coverage that you might want. And that's fine with me. But making sure that everybody is in this pool so we can hold down costs and expand coverage is essential. I'll tell you, I just spoke earlier today to a group of seniors, and I asked for a show of hands. How many of you are happy with Medicare? Just about all of them raised their hands. So I said, well, why don't we expand that system to everyone? Let's lower the age of Medicare eligibility to 0. And it's a proposal they supported. I'm sorry that the insurance industry and the drug companies stood in the way when we were first debating health care reform a decade ago. It's time to get there now.
So this reminds me, though, of the conversation that we had years back with the Affordable Care Act, where President Obama and Democrats made the promise that if you like your insurance, you can keep your insurance, and that was a broken promise. Are you even going to be able to make a promise like that in the future? What would you tell people who say, I'm satisfied with my insurance, or at least this aspect of it?
Well, I think if you look at the folks I've been talking to over the last 4 years as I travel across the state, listening to families who have been devastated by mental illness or drug addiction or the high cost of health care, very few people I know are satisfied with the system now. Or if they are satisfied, it won't be long until another catastrophic illness or catastrophic health care bill hits. So what I want to do is create a system that covers everybody, that improves costs, and improves the quality of care. I think we can do that, and most of the evidence I've seen suggests that the way to do that is to create a system of Medicare for all.
When you look overseas to other countries that have similar setups, do you think their care is better than ours?
Well, I think American doctors and nurses and healthcare providers are among the best trained and delivering some of the best services in the world. The trouble is most folks can't afford all of that care. And so getting costs down to a place where families don't have to choose between filling their medicine cabinet or putting food on their table, that's essential. And I think that's been missing from a lot of this debate.
So this is your third attempt to win a seat in Congress. What did you learn from your first 2 campaigns?
I'll tell you, I've learned over the last 4 years, to be honest, Kyle, that there are a lot more important things than losing an election. I lost, as you know, someone I loved to suicide 4 years ago, and I've spent the last 4 years determined to make sure that nobody else in Colorado has to suffer this kind of anguish. So the hits I will take, I expect, in the course of a political campaign are part of the territory now, but they're nothing compared to the struggles that so many people in this state are going through every day. I've met families who have lost their jobs, their savings, their homes, their loved ones in some cases, like my family has. And I want to make sure that the urgency I've brought to this issue, this cause of mental health care, is matched in Congress on every issue that matters, because we're running out of time. We've got about 12 years left, even by the Trump administration's own estimates, to decarbonize the economy. We're running out of time for families who are struggling to pay the high cost of health care or seeing their jobs washed away in this economy. And I don't sense the same kind of urgency in Washington. Maybe it's because if you get to the U.S. Senate, you're set. You've got a paycheck even if the government shuts down. You've got health benefits that are more generous than the kind most Americans enjoy. You've got a pension plan. I think it's easy to be insulated, in other words, from the pain that people here are feeling right now. And I want to make sure that won't happen. I also want to make sure you don't have to have millions of dollars just to get the ear of a senator or member of Congress.
Electability, though, is a fair concern for Democratic primary voters. They're going to have a lot of candidates to choose from, and they're going to want to win. And there are going to be people who say, last time Andrew Romanoff was in a high-profile race that a lot of national Democrats were invested in, you underperformed.
Well, it's true. I lost. We did the math, actually. We decided in this election we're going to try to get more votes than the other guys. That's smart.
Strategy. I like that.
Look, the truth is, I think what voters want is to see in their elected officials is resilience. When your kid falls down, you don't say, hey, stay there. You say, get up. And I intend to get up and fight every single day because the stakes are too high to do anything less.
Let's talk about this idea of a Green New Deal. This means different things to different people. It's still being hashed out in Washington. We heard Republican Congressman Doug Lamborn of the Springs say recently that the young progressives in Congress who are pushing this are just too naive and inexperienced to understand what they're doing. In fairness, you have a bit more life experience than they do. Why do you think the idea of a massive spend on infrastructure, on green infrastructure, is beneficial to the U.S.?
Well, it's beneficial for all sorts of reasons. One, we've got to protect this planet unless we want to see a new normal that consists of increasingly violent storms, droughts, forest fires, coastal erosion, climate refugees when people are being uprooted because of the changes we've imposed on our climate. We've seen low-income communities in particular suffer the devastating effects of carbon pollution, which is responsible now for millions of deaths around the globe. The good news is we don't have to choose between protecting our planet and growing our economy. We're proving here in Colorado that you can do both. In fact, there is likely to be a net gain associated with our shift from fossil fuel to renewable energy. So you get a healthier environment, cleaner air, cleaner water, more jobs. Look, even if all the skeptics that you're talking about are right, even if this whole thing, as Donald Trump says, is just a hoax, even if our climate isn't changing and humans aren't contributing to it, what's the worst that can happen if we adopt a Green New Deal? We get a stronger economy, we get a cleaner environment, we live a healthier life. So the worst case scenario, in other words, is not that bad. I happen to think the scientists are right. And I also know that we are running out of time to match the urgency of this moment.
There might be a middle ground between global warming is a Chinese hoax and how could this go wrong? The middle ground might be, should Americans accept pain in terms of scaled-back lifestyle and consumer choices and so forth, while China and India build power plants and put out way more pollution than we take off the grid?
Well, so America's got to lead the charge here. I've heard folks say, gosh, America shouldn't take the initiative. We should let other states step up. They're going to eat our lunch because there are a lot of good jobs and money to be made in renewable energy. China understands that. Our wind and solar and geothermal industries here in the United States understand that. So again, I think we can grow the economy and protect the planet and ensure the survival of not just our species, but every other on Earth. We've destroyed 60% of the world's wildlife since 1970. So there's a lot at stake. And at the moment, to the best of my knowledge, this is the only planet we get to call home.
Down the home stretch here, I want to ask you two political questions. You have Democrats in Congress who are already talking about impeaching President Trump. Do you think that's premature?
No, I don't. Look, if you say there's a guy investigating me, I'm going to fire him so that he stops investigating me. It's hard to know what obstruction of justice would look like other than that. I mean, it's a paint-by-numbers approach here, and the president admitted as much on national TV. So no, I don't think it's premature to talk about hearings around this issue.
And lastly, how sure are you that Cory Gardner is actually going to run for re-election?
Well, I expect he will. Look, I served with Cory in the State House for 4 years, but I'm running not just because I believe Cory Gardner and Donald Trump are wrong on the issues, but because I know that Colorado is right. I know that we can take the lead on health care reform, on climate change, on an economy that works for all of us, and on breaking the death grip that so many corporate interest groups have now imposed on both parties in Congress. I think what voters, especially in Colorado, are looking for is a leader who will stand up, not just to this administration, but to our own party on occasion when our conscience demands it. I've done that. I'm prepared to do that. I'm eager to represent this state in the United States Senate.
Well, that was going to be my last question. You kind of gave your closing summation, but if you're going to put the ball on the tee, I have to take a swing at it. What's an issue where you think the Democrats in Washington have it wrong right now and you'd like to go and stand up to them on it?
On campaign finance reform, it's pretty clear that we're never going to get the changes we need on climate change, on health care, or on any of these other issues as long as we allow special interest groups to write the rules. They are bankrolling both parties in Congress, not out of the goodness of their own hearts. They don't technically have hearts. Corporations are not people, despite what the Supreme Court may tell you. They're doing it because they get something in return. That's why my campaign, which you can join at andrewromanoff.com, is funded not by political action committees, but by individuals. And we're hoping folks all across the state will chip in right now.
We hear a lot of Democrats say we're not going to take special interest money, and they just make them hand it off to somebody else, and then they take it through the back door. In terms of they take it from another committee, not from the interest themselves. Are you going to do that?
No, our campaign is powered by people, and I'm asking individuals to chip in. You can contribute up to $5,600 per person.
All right. Andrew Romanoff, thank you for coming in for the first of what I hope is a couple of conversations.
Thank you.
Subscribe to the next YouTube channel and I'll buy you a beer. Am I actually buying them a beer? This could be a very poor idea. We need some terms and conditions. Offer subject to terms and conditions.